Hello everybody. Today the topic which we are going to discuss is lateral ventricle. Everybody know that where the lateral ventricle is situated. Lateral ventricles are two irregular cavities that are situated in each cerebral hemisphere. Okay, these are the two irregular cavities situated in each cerebral hemisphere, and each ventricle, the lateral ventricle, communicates, each lateral ventricle communicates with the third ventricle through the interventricular foramen called as foramen of Monro. Got it? This interventricular foramen is also called as foramen of Monro, isn't it? So this is the communication. So first, the location of the lateral ventricle. So yesterday I showed you this is the cerebral hemisphere. है ना? This is the cerebral hemisphere, and within the cerebral hemisphere you have the corpus
Callosum.
callosum, isn't it? You have the corpus callosum, and within the concavity of the corpus callosum is situated the lateral ventricle. So, in each cerebral hemisphere, this cavity is present. This is called as the lateral ventricle. Okay, understood? Everybody? So you all know the parts of the corpus callosum. See now, this is the rostrum, this is the genu, this is the trunk, this is the splenium. Then over here you have the fornix. Okay. Then this prolongation is called as the lamina terminalis, isn't it? So now these things are going to be related to the lateral ventricle. All these structures are going to be related to the lateral ventricle. Each lateral ventricle consists of a central part and three horns. Got it? Each lateral ventricle consists of a central part and three horns. Got it? So the parts of lateral ventricle are, got it? First one is the central part. ये दिखता है ना ज़रा अच्छा से? Central part. Got it? And three horns. Got it? It has got central part and three horns. The three horns are the anterior horn, the posterior horn, and the inferior horn. Got it? You have the anterior horn, posterior horn, and the inferior horn. So these are the parts of the lateral ventricle. It consists of a central part. Got it? It consists of a central part, three horns, the anterior horn, the posterior horn, and the inferior horn. Now, the central part. First of all, the central part of the lateral ventricle. Now to draw the central part, first I draw a diagram.
इस साइड से उस साइड से दिख नहीं रहा है कुछ.
Draw Okay. Now the lateral ventricle. The lateral ventricle, I told you, consists of central part and three horns. Okay. So see this portion which is present over here. Got it? This portion which is present over here is the central part of the lateral ventricle. Got it? This portion which is present over here is the central part of the lateral ventricle. The two ventricles, got it? The two ventricles over here, they are communicated by the interventricular foramen. Got it? This is the interventricular foramen. Okay, this is the central part. Okay, this is the two ventricles are communicated by the interventricular foramen. Got it? Below down, it is communicating with the third ventricle. Got it? It is communicating with the third ventricle, that is the foramen of Monro. Got it? That is the foramen of Monro. And then this third ventricle, below that is present the cerebral aqueduct. Got it? Is present the cerebral aqueduct. This cerebral aqueduct opens into the fourth ventricle. So this is how the flow of CSF takes place. So this is the structure of the lateral ventricle. Got it? Right side, left side, or right side or left side. This portion is the central part of the lateral ventricle. Got it? This central part extends from the interventricular foramen up to the splenium. Got it? This central part of the lateral ventricle extends from the interventricular foramen, and this side it is lying up to the splenium. Okay, the two ventricles are communicated with each other by the interventricular foramen. Got it? They are communicated by the interventricular foramen. Below it is communicating with the third ventricle. Got it? Through a foramen, this foramen, and this is called as foramen of Monro. This is called as foramen of Monro. The third ventricle communicates with the fourth ventricle by the cerebral aqueduct. It communicates with the fourth ventricle by the cerebral aqueduct. Okay, so this is about the central part of the lateral ventricle. Okay, now the horns of the lateral ventricle. Okay, so this portion is the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. This is the posterior horn of the lateral ventricle, and this is the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. Because now I drew it in above downwards format, but this is lying down. Got it? This is lying this way. Got it? So you have the anterior horn, you have the posterior horn, and you have the inferior. So see, it is like this: anterior horn, posterior horn, and the inferior horn. Okay? These are the horns of the lateral ventricle: anterior horn, posterior horn, and the inferior horn. So to repeat again, the lateral ventricles are two irregular cavities which are situated one in each cerebral hemisphere. This lateral ventricle communicates with the third ventricle by the foramen of Monro, and the two ventricles are communicated by the interventricular foramen. See, the name itself suggests interventricular foramen or foramen of Monro. This lateral ventricle consists of two parts, the central part and the three horns of the lateral ventricle. The central part is the portion which extends from the interventricular foramen and outside over here to the splenium. So this portion is the central part of the lateral ventricle. The three horns of the lateral ventricle are the anterior horn, the posterior horn, and the inferior horn, or you can say the anterior horn, the posterior horn, and the inferior horn. Okay, so these are the this is the structure of the lateral ventricle. Now the relations, the boundaries of the lateral ventricle. Now the boundaries of the lateral ventricle. So the boundaries of the central part of the lateral ventricle are, got it? The boundaries of the lateral ventricle, central part of the lateral ventricle are, it consists of so the boundaries are, the central part consists of the roof, got it? It consists of the floor, and it consists of the medial wall. Got it? It consists of roof, floor, and the medial wall. It consists of roof, floor, and the medial wall. Okay? So these are the boundaries of the central part of the lateral ventricle. Okay? Now I will draw a diagram for you which will explain the relations of all this. Okay? Now first of all, this is the okay. First of all, this is the corpus callosum. Got it? This is, now whatever I am going to show you is a section. The corpus callosum over here in the middle, there is presence of, got it? There is presence of septum pellucidum, and here this is the fornix. Got it? This is the corpus callosum. Got it? This is the septum pellucidum, and below down over here it ends into the fornix. On either side of the septum pellucidum, there is presence of the irregular cavity, got it, called as the lateral ventricle. Got it? There is presence of the irregular cavity, the lateral ventricle. Then on the lateral side of the lateral ventricle, there is presence of the caudate nucleus. Got it? On the lateral side of the lateral ventricle, this is the caudate nucleus. Got it? This is the caudate nucleus. Below the caudate nucleus, below this fornix is present the choroid plexus along with the tala choroidi. Got it? There is presence of the choroid plexus along with the tala choroidi. Got it? Then below this is present the cavity of the third ventricle. Okay? Below this is present the cavity of the third ventricle, and on either side of the third ventricle you have the thalamus. Got it? You have the thalamus. Okay? On either side of the third ventricle is present the thalamus, and below the thalamus is present the hypothalamus. Okay? Below the thalamus is, so this is the corpus callosum. Got it? Below this is present the corpus callosum. Then this portion is the fornix. Got it? This is, sorry, this is the septum pellucidum. This is the fornix. Got it? This is the caudate nucleus. This is the tala choroidi. Got it? This is the thalamus. This is the hypothalamus, and this is the third ventricle. Got it? And this over here, there is presence of the choroid plexus of the lateral ventricle inside. Choroid plexus of the lateral ventricle. Okay? Now, the relations of the central part. The the relations of the central part. Okay. Now the roof of the central part. Got it? The roof of the central part is formed by the corpus callosum. Got it? The roof. This is the roof of the lateral ventricle. So the central part, the roof is formed by the corpus callosum. The floor. The floor is formed by the caudate nucleus. Got it? On the either side. The floor is formed by the caudate nucleus. It is formed by the stria terminalis and the thalamostriate vein. Got it? It is formed by the thalamostriate vein. Got it? See, this blue portion is the thalamostriate vein and the stria terminalis. Got it? You have the stria terminalis. So the floor is formed by the caudate nucleus, the stria terminalis and the thalamostriate vein. Got it? It is formed by the caudate nucleus, stria terminalis and thalamostriate vein. The medial part of the central part of the lateral ventricle is formed by, got it? It is formed by the septum pellucidum and the fornix. The medial part is formed by septum pellucidum and the fornix. So to repeat again the relations of the central part of the lateral ventricle. The central part, the roof is formed by the corpus callosum. These are the lateral ventricles. Got it? This is the lateral ventricle. This is the lateral ventricle. Got it? So these two are the lateral ventricles. So the roof is formed by the corpus callosum. The floor is formed by the caudate nucleus, the stria terminalis. Got it? And the thalamostriate vein. Got it? And the thalamostriate vein and some portion of the thalamus. And some portion of the thalamus. Okay? So this is the floor. The medial part is formed by the septum pellucidum and the fornix. The medial part is formed by the septum pellucidum and the fornix. So these are the boundaries of the central part of the lateral ventricle. Got it? These are the boundaries of the central part of the lateral ventricle. Now the anterior horn. It is the lateral part of the ventricle which lies in front of the interventricular foramen. Just now I showed you the diagram. It lies in front of the interventricular foramen up to the frontal lobe. So the extent of the anterior horn, is from the interventricular foramen to the frontal lobe. Got it? And this anterior horn, it has the boundaries. Got it? It has the boundaries. Anterior boundary, medial boundary, roof and the floor. Got it? Roof and the floor. Okay? It is having the anterior boundary, the posterior boundary, the roof and the floor. So I'll rub this. Got it? I hope you understood the central part of the corpus callosum. Isn't it? The central part of the corpus callosum. Now, the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. The anterior horn of the lateral ventricle, the boundaries of the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle are, you have the anterior boundary, the medial boundary, the roof and the floor. Got it? You have the anterior boundary, the medial boundary, the roof and the floor. The roof and the floor. Now first of all, the anterior boundary. The anterior boundary is formed by the genu and rostrum of the corpus callosum. Now every time I have been drawing this diagram for you to understand. Got it? So the anterior horn is related to the genu and the rostrum. This is the genu and this is the rostrum. So it is related to the genu and the rostrum. The medial part is related to the septum pellucidum. The medial part is related to the septum pellucidum. The roof is formed by the trunk of the lateral ventricle. The roof is formed by the trunk of the lateral ventricle, and the floor is formed by the rostrum and the head of the caudate nucleus. So here you have the thalamus. So somewhere here will be the caudate nucleus. Got it? So to repeat again, the anterior horn, it has got these four boundaries: the anterior boundary, the medial boundary, the roof and the floor. Got it? You have the anterior boundary, you have the medial boundary, you have the roof and the floor. The anterior boundary is formed by the genu and the rostrum. The anterior boundary is formed by the genu and the rostrum. The roof is formed by the trunk of the corpus callosum. The roof is formed by the trunk of the corpus callosum, and the medial part is formed by the septum pellucidum. The medial part is formed by the septum pellucidum, and the floor is formed by the caudate nucleus. Got it? The floor is formed by the caudate nucleus. Now the posterior horn. The posterior horn, it is a part that lies behind the splenium and it extends behind up to the occipital lobe. Got it? The posterior horn, it is a part of the lateral ventricle which lies behind the splenium and it extends up to the occipital lobe. The anterior horn, it extends up to the frontal lobe. The posterior horn extends up to the occipital lobe, and over here this posterior horn also has boundaries such as floor. It has got the boundaries such as floor and roof. Got it? It has got a floor and the roof. Got it? Now this posterior horn, I'll draw the diagram to show you the relations. The posterior horn, now here I'm going to draw the cut section. You have this. Okay. So this is the lateral ventricle over here. Got it? This is the lateral ventricle. Okay? This is the lateral ventricle. Okay? Now the posterior horn, okay, it has a roof and it has a floor. Got it? The posterior horn, it has a roof and it has the floor. Okay? The roof of the lateral ventricle, the posterior horn of the lateral ventricle, it is formed by the tapetum. Got it? This portion is called as the tapetum. Noted? It is formed by the tapetum, and the floor is formed by, got it? The floor is formed by the forceps major. Got it? It is formed by the forceps major and the calcarine sulcus. Got it? And this is the forceps major. Okay? Now to repeat again, the posterior horn of the lateral ventricle, okay, it has got two boundaries, the roof and the floor. Got it? The posterior horn of the lateral ventricle consists of the roof and the floor. So see, this is the section of the lateral ventricle. Okay? So see, inside this cerebral hemisphere, got it? Now this is going to be the occipital lobe. Okay? This is the occipital lobe. And in this occipital lobe, this is the posterior horn which is present. So this is the lateral ventricle which is present. This lateral ventricle, over here is related to the tapetum. In the morning, when I talked to you about the corpus callosum, the connection between the corpus callosum, isn't it? So the connections between the corpus callosum, up it is connected with the forceps minor, lower down it is connected with the forceps major. The forceps minor, they communicate with the frontal lobe. The forceps major, they communicate with the occipital lobe, and the, isn't it? And the middle portion, you see a broad band which I told you, from the anterior part to the posterior part, all along the trunk. It is called as tapetum. Got it? It is called as tapetum. So superiorly the floor is formed, the roof is formed by the tapetum, and inferiorly the floor is formed by the forceps major. And this gap which you see over here, this is the calcarine sulcus. Got it? This is the calcarine sulcus. Below this calcarine sulcus is present the calcarine avis. Got it? It is the part of the occipital lobe. It is a part of the occipital lobe. So, to repeat again, the posterior horn of the lateral ventricle, the roof is formed by the tapetum, and the floor is formed by the forceps major and the calcarine sulcus. Got it? And the calcarine sulcus. I hope things are easily understood by you. Now remaining is the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. Inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. Come in front, otherwise you will capture the clothes. Zara, come in front. Now remaining is the inferior horn. The inferior horn is the largest horn of the lateral ventricle. Got it? The inferior horn is the largest horn of the lateral ventricle, and it begins from the central part of the lateral ventricle up to the temporal lobe of the cerebrum. Got it? It is the it is the largest part of the lateral ventricle. The inferior horn is the largest part of the lateral ventricle. It extends from the central part of the lateral ventricle to the temporal lobe. So the anterior horn up to the frontal lobe, posterior horn up to the occipital lobe, and the inferior horn up to the temporal lobe. Okay. Now this inferior horn also has got a roof and a floor. Got it? It is got a roof and a floor. So these are the boundaries. The roof is also called as the lateral wall. The roof is also called as the lateral wall. The roof of the lateral ventricle. So see, this, what I am going to draw is the lateral ventricle. Okay, this is the lateral ventricle. Here inside this is present the choroid plexus. Got it? I am drawing it in red so that you can differentiate it. This is the choroid plexus. Okay, over here. Okay, then up over here, it is related to the stria terminalis. It is related to the tail of the caudate nucleus, and it is related to the tapetum. Got it? So the roof of the lateral ventricle, the roof of the lateral ventricle is formed by the stria terminalis. Got it? It is also formed by the tail of the caudate nucleus, and this is the tapetum. Got it? This is the tapetum. Okay? This is the tapetum. Then the floor. The floor, it is formed by the collateral eminence of the collateral sulcus. It is formed by the collateral eminence of the collateral sulcus. So see, below down over here, there is presence of the collateral sulcus. Got it? See this, like this. Okay? Okay, like this. So this portion is the collateral sulcus. Got it? This is the collateral sulcus. Got it? This portion over here is the hippocampus. this is the hippocampus. Okay. Then this portion over here is the dentate nucleus. Okay, this is the dentate nucleus, and this is the choroid plexus. Okay, so now the inferior horn. The roof is formed by the stria terminalis. It is formed by the stria terminalis. It is formed by the tail of the caudate nucleus, and this is the tapetum. So these are the three structures which are forming the roof of the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. The floor is formed by the choroid plexus, because they are going to extend down the choroid plexus, the hippocampus and the collateral eminence of the collateral sulcus. Got it? The collateral eminence of the collateral sulcus. Okay. So to repeat again, the roof is formed by the stria terminalis. It is formed by the tail of the caudate nucleus. It is formed by the tapetum, and the floor is formed by the choroid plexus, the hippocampus, and the collateral eminence of the collateral sulcus. So this is all about the lateral ventricle. Okay. So I hope you understood this, and I will post you the notes, and you will go through the lecture. Thank you.